So let me again welcome you on behalf of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you for joining us for today's second workshop in the new Survive and Thrive Small Business Series of the Barbados Chamber. My name is Valerie Hope, and I'm the Senior Business Development Officer of the Barbados Chamber. It is both my pleasure and honor to be your moderator for this morning's session. Now, the last few years have been some of the toughest that we've experienced in modern times. Like the proverbial silver lining around every cloud, the challenges have led to new opportunities and ways to build better business. The Chamber's Survive and Thrive series is designed to help small, micro, and even medium businesses with the knowledge, tools, and tips to excel in the current and future environment. The Chamber is pleased to be able to host this workshop series, which could not have been possible without the kind contributions and support of our sponsors, the Nation Publishing Company Limited, Fund Access, the Business and Employment Center, Deloitte Barbados, RDL Eagle Trade Inc., and Guardian General Insurance Limited. We extend our sincerest appreciation to these organizations for their support and partnership as we seek to assist businesses of every size to better position, restructure, and grow their business. Now, just a little housekeeping before we get started. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom, if you have any questions for today's facilitator, you have two options. During the Q&A session after the presentation, you can use the raise hand feature to alert the team that you want to ask a question directly. Alternatively, you can type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel throughout the presentation, and our team will be sure to make sure that they're posed to our presenter. For those of you who are joining us on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to share your questions with us via the comment section. Now, it's time to get started, and I'm excited, and I hope you are too. I invite Mrs. Misha Loban-Clark, Executive Director of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to deliver our official welcome remarks. Over to you, Misha.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President and the Council of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I'm really pleased to welcome you to the second of our dynamic workshops on the BCCI's new Survive and Thrive business series. We officially launched the series with the first workshop on Thursday, November 18th, and the first series explored the topic enabling innovation and digital transformation for businesses. And today we are pleased to present the second workshop in the series focusing on the topic marketing and service excellence as a winning strategy. The last 2 years have undoubtedly been a challenging one for businesses of every size, both in Barbados and the rest of the world, as we continue to experience disruptions and economic downturn as a result of the global COVID-19 pandemic. Small and medium-sized entities here in Barbados and globally have been more greatly impacted due to capacity, resources, infrastructure, or other limitations. And they continue to struggle to survive in this current economic climate, which has forced many businesses to have to innovate, repivot, and rebuild in order to stay afloat. Recognizing the critical role that small and medium-sized enterprises play in the continued growth and resilience of the Barbados economy, and the need to support businesses within its membership, the BCCI has increased its customized services and offerings, particularly to support small and medium-sized businesses in recovering and during this difficult time. And this is a key strategy and priority for the Barbados Chamber as we continue to advance the interest of the business sector and to support the rebuilding of a vibrant and strong business ecosystem for Barbados. And so it's against this background that the Survive and Thrive series was conceptualized specifically to help small and medium-sized businesses in Barbados to gain the relevant tools and strategies to ensure their continued success during this difficult climate, while of course positioning their businesses to drive economic diversification and growth, which is critical to the future sustainability of the Barbados economy. The Survive and Thrive series has been made possible through the collaboration and partnership of our corporate sponsors, the Nation Publishing Company, Fund Access, the Business and Employment Center, Deloitte Barbados, and RBL Trink, and of course, Guardian Life Insurance Limited. And so I'd just like to publicly acknowledge and thank these sponsors for readily agreeing to come on board and to partner with the Barbados Chamber in this important initiative. As I close, I'd just like to encourage you, our participants, to fully capitalize on the tools and guidance that will be shared by today's subject matter expert, Mr. Ron Johnson, who will be focusing on the topic marketing and service excellence as a winning strategy. And it is our hope here at the Barbados Chamber that this session and the rest of the series will equip you with the winning strategies to move your businesses to the next level as you seek to put your business on the optimal path to success. I thank you very much.
We'll now have another short sponsors break by Silver sponsor, the Business and Employment Center. They have the people you need to help your business succeed.
Searching for temporary or permanent workers. Do you want to avoid the cost and hassle of recruiting new staff? Or would you like access to cost-effective services that will allow you to stay focused on growing your business? Well then, the Business and Employment Center has you covered. With over 50 years experience, you can count on us to provide you with the right staff when you need them. Our services include temporary, contract, leasing, permanent recruitment or temp to hire staffing. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced many businesses to adapt and change how they operate. With some of your staff getting ill, isolating as a result of COVID-19 exposure, or simply with them taking vacation. As the premier provider of temporary staffing in Barbados, we can temporarily fill their positions with competent and reliable substitutes, fast. Our large pool of candidates have gone through assessments, skills testing, and background checks, and are on standby for assignment. We also provide other services that help you focus on growing your business. Contact us today and ask about our payroll, business support, and courier services. You can visit us at Kensington Court, Fontebelle St. Michael. Call us at 537-7243 or visit our website at www.bvempcent.com for more information. At the Business and Employment Center, our mission is to help you succeed.
Thank you, Business and Employment Center. So, today's feature presenter, Mr. Ron Johnson, is an expert triple threat. He's a renowned speaker, author, and storyteller. Ron is the managing director and co-founder of Blueprint Creative, the world's first branding with an H, communications and design agency. He has over a decade of practical, hands-on experience helping companies build stronger brands and stronger businesses. He has also coached business professionals in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the USA, Mexico, and Malaysia. Ron has certainly traveled the world with his expertise and experience in branding. Ron is also the creator of the branding equation. That's branding plus HR to give us BHRANDING, branding. This is a business framework designed to help companies tear down the silos between their branding and HR teams and replace those silos with powerful organizational synergies. Ron has recently published his first book under the title, Tighten Your Shoelaces: How the World's Leading Companies Defend and Grow Their Brands During a Crisis. And we certainly need that expertise right now. He'll be using this subject as a theme to share with you what I know will be some riveting insights that can help your business achieve marketing and service excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased and proud to introduce Mr. Ron Johnson.
So today's session is called Tighten Your Shoelaces: How to Defend and Grow Your Brand During a Crisis. It's supposed to be an interactive workshop for CEOs, marketing professionals, and HR specialists. Just a little bit about myself, as Valerie already queued me up. Um, Blueprint Creative is the world's first branding, communications, and design agency. And no, that's not a typo. That's actually really spelled branding, and I explain that in a little while. We have won several ADDIE awards for our design prowess. We've also won three Barbados' Best Employers Awards for our company culture and our HR practices. I am the creator of a custom business workshop called the Brand Equation. And the purpose of this equation is really to help companies kind of de-silo their organization so their marketing and HR teams can work more closely together. As Valerie mentioned, I have coached business professionals all over the world, as far away as Malaysia. And a little bit about me personally, I happen to love coffee and lemon sorbet. So if you ever want to talk business, just invite me out and tell me there's coffee, and I will be there. So I just want to share some images of some of the workshops I've done all over the world. I try to make the workshops as engaging as possible. We've done everything in our workshops in terms of fun activities. We've flown paper planes. We've had acting out skates, as you can see here. But the world has changed, and we are living in a virtual world right now. But hopefully, after we get this pandemic under control globally, we'll be able to go back out there and see each other in person. I am the author of the book called Tighten Your Shoelaces, How the World's Leading Companies Defend and Grow Their Brands During the Crisis. And some of the principles that we talk about in the book, we will be discussing right here today. Just a little bit more about me. People always say that during my workshops, I come off as very, very intense, very, very serious. So, I always make a joke during these workshop sessions that I have a medical affliction called FDS. It stands for Fund Deficiency Syndrome, because people always tell me I look very, very serious. But don't worry, I don't bite. And despite what people may say, I'm actually a very approachable type of guy. So to start off this session, I want to talk to you about a business fable that really sets the stage for today's session. So as a business fable goes, there were these two hikers who were walking through the woods, and all of a sudden they encountered this huge angry bear about to devour them. The first hiker quickly bent down and tightened his shoelaces, and it was clear that he was planning to make a run for it. The second hiker looked at him and said, "Well, what the heck are you doing? You can't possibly outrun a bear." The first hiker took off on a sprint. He looked over his shoulder and he said, "I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you." So from that business fable, we can understand that sometimes you don't have to take on the entire bear, which is in this case, a challenging economy, a very traumatic pandemic. Sometimes you just have to outrun the guy running next to you. So my question for you today is, which hiker are you? Are you the hiker that is going to tighten his shoelaces and make a run for it? Or are you the second hiker, which is just going to put his hands up in the air and says, "Well, I can't possibly outrun the bear"? So I'm really, really hoping that all of us here today identify this story and identify especially the first hiker. Now, this slide on the screen is stating something that most people should think is obvious, right? But it probably isn't to some people. So because of the pandemic that we're encountering, because of the lockdowns, because of the quarantine, because of the isolation, we all know that this is not business as usual, right? People have had to adjust a lot of things over the last 2 years. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that this is not business as usual, so it can't be branding as usual. What tended to work from a branding, advertising, and a marketing perspective in the past, a lot of it isn't working right now. So we need to make sure that as we move forward, we're not just thinking about adapting the basic obvious things, like perhaps changes in our opening office hours. We have to take a look at how we're going to brand in a very different way to make sure that moving forward, we can defend and grow our brands even during a crisis, right? So today's workshop goal is we want to introduce you to the branding equation, which is the business framework that I developed, that I've taught people all over the world. And we want to teach you how to use that framework to immediately tighten your shoelaces and become more effective and more resilient. We are going to be going at a breakneck speed here. We have a limited amount of time. So all I have to say is strap in and hold on tight. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. One of the team from BCCI will alert me of a particular question. Also, you guys are seeing my presentation. I'm not seeing you. So it'd be really, really great if you can make the chat as interactive as possible. If you hear something that you identify with, put it in the chat. If you hear something you disagree with, put it in the chat. If there's something you want me to expand on more, put it in the chat. And Valerie, or one of the team from BCCI, will funnel those questions and those comments to me. So I'm about to show you a video, and I want you to pay very, very, very close attention to the video. And I want you to follow the instructions, because this is going to set the stage for the rest of the presentation. So Rav or Valerie, you guys can go cue the video now. And of course, as we discussed, we're going to pause it at the right time.
Today we're going to play a game specifically designed to test your spatial awareness. Meet the Brain Games Double Dutch team. Now, what does jumping rope have to do with the brain? Well, Double Dutch requires off-the-chart spatial awareness. And today, these kids are going to help us test yours. For this game, all you have to do is keep track of the number of times that either of the girls in green jumps. You'll count each time one of them lands a jump, like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
As you can see, these jumpers are pretty quick on their feet, so you're going to have to pay attention to keep up. When the whistle blows, start counting. Ready? Go. So, how many jumps did the green team make?
Okay, guys, so this is the first interactive session in the workshop. And I want you guys to put in the chat how many times you think the green team jumped. This is going to be a fairly fun exercise. Val, please stand by. Let me know what people are saying in the chat, how many times they thought the green team jumped. In previous exercises, people have counted just around the area of 30 jumps. Is that what you guys kind of saw? Like around 30? Some people might see 20 something. We've had people go all the way up to 40. But let me know what you guys think. How many times did the green team jump? I'm seeing some person typing in the chat. Let me see. Some person said 31 jumps. Anyone else? Did anyone get any lower than that? Did anyone get any higher? Okay, I've got 35. Anybody else? We're off to a good start. Anyone else? I'm seeing someone typing in chat. Oh, someone says 36. We're going up and up. Anyone else? Anyone else counted to see like how many times the green team jumped? So far we've got 31, 35, and 36. Okay, so my question to you, I'm seeing someone else typing in the chat, but my question to you while I'm getting more feedback on the jumps is, did you guys see anything a little bit strange about the video? Did you guys see anything besides the green team jumping? Anybody? I'm going to pause here just for 5 seconds to see if anyone saw anything odd or anything strange in the video. Okay, so we have no answers. So I'm going to just go on the assumption that no one saw anything odd or anything strange. So Ray, you can go ahead.
Today we're going to play a game specifically designed to test your spatial awareness. So, did you say 38, If so, you agreed with 40% of our test audience. Now, some of you may be onto us, but for those of you who aren't, did you happen to notice anything else going on during the double dutch? Maybe a giant chicken strolling right through the middle of the set and doing a funky chicken dance? Now, some of you may have missed that funky chicken, but many of you probably saw it. And that's okay, because the chicken was just there to distract you too. Here's the real question. What color was the wall behind the double dutch game? Here's a hint. It wasn't the same color at the end as it was when they started jumping. The back wall was changing color the entire time, from bright blue to bright red. Nearly everyone misses it. But why? It turns out there's far too much information coming in through the eyes at any given moment for the brain to fully process all of it. As a result, the brain has to act like a spotlight, focusing our attention on some parts of the scene but not others. Now, most of you were probably paying attention to the jumpers, and some of you may have suspected that something strange was going to happen, and so you saw the chicken. But you probably weren't paying attention to the back wall. And what we don't pay attention to, we don't see. And hey, for those of you who managed to catch everything so far, did you notice that we also swapped the rope turners out halfway through? Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So I'm guessing that not a lot of people caught all of those things that were going on in the background, right? And the reason is that you're so focused on the task at hand. But I want to use this as an analogy for the branding landscape. Sometimes we are so focused on the task at hand, putting up posts on social media, booking ads on the radio, booking ads in a newspaper, putting out brochures and business cards, that we don't see giant dancing chickens that are scrolling across our brand equation, our brand environment. I'm here to tell you that those giant dancing chickens can destroy our business. So what are we talking about when we say giant dancing chickens? We're talking about things like disengaged employees, low productivity, poor customer experience, poor product or service quality, slow turnaround time. You see, even if we have a strong website, strong business cards, strong logos, but we have these elements in our environments, in our office, in our workplace, they're going to destroy everything you've worked so hard to build. So I want to give you two contrasting situations that I encountered very recently. And by the way, if anyone knows where that statement, sometimes you just want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. That is the theme song from a very popular sitcom back in the 90s. Yes, I am showing my age. So if anyone knows exactly where that statement comes from, I'll even give you a hint. I don't sing very well, but the tune goes something like this. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. So like I said, I don't have a great singing voice, but if you are familiar with that theme song, put it in the chat. Let's see how good your trivia is. So I have on the screen a cup of coffee, and if you take a look at it, you'll see that my name is on this cup of coffee. So one of my favorite cafes to go to is Cafe 195 in Warrens. And no, this is not a paid endorsement. I just love them so much. When I go there, I feel like people know my name. I once ordered breakfast there. It was 2 eggs and a side order of mushrooms and tomatoes. And when it came, it was arranged in a smiley face. When I come in, I order my coffee, they put my name. I top of the coffee in the froth. I've seen people from that cafe walk out in the pouring rain with an umbrella to save people who were outside trapped in their car to bring them in. This is the kind of service that kind of builds loyalty, right? Now, I want to contrast that with another encounter I had in the food industry where I was waiting for quite some time to be able to get to the front of the line to place my order. And when I got there, they said, basically, we are sorry, we're only accepting cash, our card machine is down. And luckily, I had a lone solitary $20 bill, but I had to kind of downsize my order to fit the cash I had. And I made a suggestion that, maybe to improve customer service, you guys could go down the line and let people know very quickly that your card machine is down. And I thought that was a reasonable suggestion, but the employee looked at me and said, "You're not doing that. That's simply extra work for our staff, and we're not going to do it." That, my friends, is an example of a giant dancing chicken because I didn't feel welcome. I didn't feel that people cared about me. And guess what? It affected your brand, right? So as we go through this session now, I want you to keep your eyes open. I want you to think very, very seriously, not just about the brand and collateral that is important to your brand, but the things that can hurt your brand, like the giant dancing chickens. Now, before we go into the main section, I want to show you a graph that was developed by Simon Natrum. He was the former head of the Barbados Economic Forum. As you can take a look from the graph, shows on the bottom axis from 1992 all the way to 2006, 2007, and the y-axis talks about GDP per worker growth, right? And according to Simon Natrum, Barbados produces only 13% more output per worker today than we did in 1991. From 91 to 2008, Barbados became only 7% more effective. Over that period, our Caribbean neighbors capitalized on the rapidly changing world around us and became 38% more effective, right? So he's saying the fundamental problem with the Barbados economy is a failure to take advantage of the rapidly changing world around us. Now, I agree with him. When we're talking about building a strong brand, it cannot only be about how my logo looks, right? It cannot only be about my business cards. It cannot only be about how my website looks, right? We have to be able to work together individually first in terms of our own organizations to improve our effectiveness, because this is all branded, right? This is all branded. And then we have to work collectively with our peers in our industry, with organizations like the Barbados, the Barbados Chamber of Commerce. Because if we don't, we're going to get stuck. So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to reverse engineer some of the most resilient companies on the planet, right? And we're going to take those lessons and we're going to implement it into our own businesses. So one of the things that big, successful, I shouldn't say big, but successful brands have is that they always have a vibrant vision. They know exactly where they want to go and they share this vision to their employees, and this vibrant vision excites employees. Another ingredient is that they have a compelling brand story. People know how they started, people know why they started. A good example is Steve Jobs, started his business in a garage with Steve Wozniak. And then from there, he built an amazing company, got kicked out of his own company. Then they brought him back to save the company. And to this day, even though Steve Jobs has passed away, people know the brand story. Another good example, Warby Parker that makes glasses. Warby Parker came about because 3 or 4 friends in college decided they're going to take on the spectacle industry, right? Because one of their co-founders lost his glasses and couldn't afford to buy a new pair. So they decided to start a company, and now for every pair of glasses they sell, they give away a pair of glasses someone in need. That's a compelling brand story. They also have a highly engaged village, and at Blueprint, we always tell our clients it takes a village to raise a brand, right? Branding is a team sport. If only the marketing department or the advertising agency is concerned about the brand, you're on the wrong track. It takes a village to raise a brand. Another ingredient that these companies have is that they have remarkable brand experience, right? It's remarkable, and we use this word with purpose because some people say, hey, I want my customer experience to be exceptional, right? But when you use the term remarkable, you know exactly whether it's working or not, because the easiest way is, are people remarking about your service? If they are not remarking about your service, you do not have remarkable brand experience. These companies also have insightful metrics to gauge how effective their branding programs are, and they have what we call lava lamp adaptability. They are able to adapt very, very, very quickly to changes in the environment. So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to sharpen your branding axe, right? And we're going to tell a story to bring it alive. There's a business fable that talks about these 2 guys who were woodsmen, and they wanted to know which one was the better outdoorsman. So the competition they came up with was whoever cuts down the most trees in a day won the competition. Simple, right? So the first guy, let's call him Joe, he jumped up, went outside, and started chopping down as many trees as he could possibly chop down. If a tree gave him a side eye, he would chop it down. If a tree didn't give him a side eye, he would chop it down. The second guy, let's call him Frank, instead of going out and hacking down trees willy-nilly, he sat down and for a full hour, he started to sharpen his axe, sharpen his axe, sharpen his axe. And you probably know where the story is going. When Frank walked outside with a sharper axe, even though Joe started before him and was hot and sweaty, and they'd been doing this for at least an hour before, Frank actually won the competition because he was swinging with a sharper axe, and therefore the work was a lot easier. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to sharpen your brand and axe, right? A lot of people have different definitions of the word brand. But at the end of the day, your brand is simply what people think and feel about your organization's products and services, right? So your brand has both a cerebral component, meaning it's where you think about things, and it has an emotional component, meaning that it drives straight down to the heart. So if your brand is anything, right? If your brand is what people think and feel about your organization, your brand is any activity, initiative, or behavior that has an influence on the way people think and feel about your organization's products and services, right? So that means, yes, advertising campaigns, yes, marketing campaigns, yes, social media campaigns, but branding also includes the level of customer experience that you give to your customers. Branding includes your employee experience, the softer things. It entails whether or not people feel warm and friendly when they walk into your organization, like they do when they go to my favorite cafe, right? And they contrast that. A poor branding is when you feel that the company is not taking you seriously for your recommendations. So another quick point, great branding is all about finding solutions to business challenges. It's not just about making things look pretty. And if you forget anything at all that anybody tells you about branding, remember this one point. People do business with others they know, like, and trust. First, they have to know you, right? And that's where advertising and marketing comes in, but they also have to like you and trust you. So liking is all about getting people to feel emotionally connected to you with a good customer service. And trust is all about making sure that people trust that you can deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So with my favorite cafe, when I go in, I have a high level of trust that I'm going to get good service and I'm going to get great food. Contrast that with the other experience I had. I don't trust that they are going to treat me with the respect that I would like. So I don't trust them, and it's affected their brand. So we're going to talk very quickly about the brand equation. Now, once again, this business framework was developed right here in Barbados by Barbadian entrepreneurs, by Barbadian business owners, and it has traveled so far across the world. And this should give you a little bit of inspiration that even if you're a small business, you can still do big global things. So let's talk about the branding equation. One of my favorite quotes about branding comes from a lady called Ginger Hardage, who is the former vice president of culture and communications at Southwest Airlines. And Southwest Airlines is known across the world for its customer service, that's employee engagement. And Ginger says brands are built from the inside out. The way a company behaves on the inside is going to find its way to the outside. So if you take a look at the young lady on the left of the screen, there's this big, bold smile. And it's clear that if you have employees and team members who are engaged, who like what they're doing, this is going to find its way to the outside to customers. But if, on the other hand, you have cranky employees, you have employees who are disengaged, that's going to find its way to the outside as well, and it's going to hurt your brand. So what we did at Blueprint Creative, we developed the framework called the branding equation, which combines conventional branding plus HR to lead us to what we call branding. It's phonetically identical, but when we explain it and when people see it on the screen, they understand, hey, HR has to be involved in branding. And this equation is very, very powerful. Even if you don't have a full-time marketing or HR department, even if you're only 5 people, only 10 people, only 3 people, you can still apply the brand equation framework by focusing on both your internal company culture and your customer-facing ads. So let's do a couple of case studies to kind of bring this home. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Wells Fargo is one of the biggest financial institutions in the US and possibly in the world. And Wells Fargo found itself in quite a pickle because they had a scandal. And in that scandal, Wells Fargo employees had set up fake email accounts on behalf of their customers. They then used these fake email accounts to set up fake credit card accounts with their bank without their customers' permission. And then they charged these customers exorbitant fees that resulted in millions of dollars in fees that were unjust to the customers. And they realized that they had to rebrand or reposition themselves. So they went to a very well-known advertising agency and said, hey, we have a problem. People are losing faith in us and we need to reposition ourselves. And they worked with the advertising agency to produce a very good 1-minute ad, which we're going to show right now.
We know the value of trust. We were built on it. Back when the country went west for gold, we were the ones who carried it back east. By steam, by horse, by iron horse. Over the years, we built on that trust. We always found the way. Until we lost it. But that isn't where the story ends. It's where it starts again. With a complete recommitment to you. Fixing what went wrong, making things right, and ending product sales goals for branch bankers. So we can focus on your satisfaction. We're holding ourselves accountable to find and fix issues proactively, because earning back your trust is our greatest priority. It's a new day at Wells Fargo, but it's a lot like our first day. Wells Fargo, established 1852, re-established 2018.
Okay, so I'm going to explain what the video is all about. So basically what happens in this video is that Wells Fargo put out a fantastic ad. So if you go to Google and you type in Wells Fargo reestablished, it's basically a fantastic ad where Wells Fargo basically says, we're sorry about what we did. We are changing our internal culture and you can trust us moving forward. The reason that the ad failed is because right after the ad campaign came out, Wells Fargo found itself in even more trouble for more scandals. So despite the fact they probably spent millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars, putting this ad together, it failed, right? Because as we're going to learn, branding starts on the inside. If nothing changes on the inside of your organization, right, but you spend lots of money on fancy ads, you're just going to be wasting your money. So I'm going to move forward now. Riv, if you do get the audio back in that video, just let me know, and I'll just double back. I think the video is worth a watch. So let's move on to...
We know the value of trust. We were built on it. Back when the country went west for gold, we were the ones who carried it back east. By steam, by horse, by iron horse. Over the years, we built on that trust. We always found the way. Until we lost it. But that isn't where the story ends. It's where it starts again. With a complete recommitment to you. Fixing what went wrong, making things right, and ending product sales goals for branch bankers. So we can focus on your satisfaction. We're holding ourselves accountable to find and fix issues proactively, because earning back your trust is our greatest priority. It's a new day at Wells Fargo, but it's a lot like our first day. Wells Fargo, established 1852, re-established 2018.
Right, so I'm hoping you guys saw and heard that video. And from production quality, I love the ad. I really do love the ad. It has all the great elements, a sincere sounding voiceover, imagery and video that take people back to Wells Fargo's early beginnings. And it was meant to instill trust. But like I said, it simply did not work out well for Wells Fargo, because even though they spent all this money on this ad, they found themselves in more scandals and more scandals. So people just didn't buy into the ad. Remember, people do business with others they know, like, and trust. Wells Fargo lost consumers' trust, and when it tried to regain it with an advertising campaign, it fell flat. So let's look at another case study, which is Domino's Pizza. So basically, Domino's had a terrible brand because people thought that the brand's items, the pizzas, everything, tasted really, really horrible. Their sales were going down, and they decided to do something about it. But they took a different approach compared to what Wells Fargo did, right? So we're going to watch this video. We're hoping the audio and the video do come through, so you can feel the video on this one.
There comes a time when you know you've got to make a change. You know, you can't lead a company like this unless you love food. I love food. I love pizza. It was about 50 years ago that they started the first store just about 5 miles from here.
Two brothers had a great idea, and they also said they wanted to get it delivered within 30 minutes, and that's something that no one said could be done. In fact, the first pizza delivery vehicle for our company is that vehicle right there. Around the 80s, we were exploding. We were the fastest growing company in the history of franchise business. Nothing had ever grown like that.
Now we're almost 9,000 restaurants around the world. We love what we do at Domino's.
Pizza, where's the love? How hard? Bread, sauce, cheese, fresh ingredients. Doesn't feel like there's much love in Domino's Pizza.
Domino's pizza crust to me is like cardboard.
Is it hard to watch this stuff?
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
I hear what some folks are saying about our stuff.
Oh, this one's bad. Worst excuse for pizza I've ever had.
The sauce tastes like ketchup.
Totally void of flavor.
You know what? When you first hear it, it's shocking.
The cardboard complaint is the most common one.
This we hear over and over and over.
I mean, that hits you right in the heart. This is what we've done. This is what I've done, for 25 years now.
You can either use negative comments to get you down, or you can use them to excite you and energize your process of making a better pizza. We did the latter.
Most companies hide the criticism that they're getting, and we actually faced it head on.
Some people didn't get us credit for the taste of our product. That's what we're fixing.
We listen to our consumers, and they want us to be better, and we want them to be happier. We want people to love our pizza.
This is what's driving us. This is what's lit the fire under us. This is what's making us want to get better.
Who are we?
Pizza! It's been crazy down here. We had our best chefs working hard to find the best combination, looking at 10 crust types, 15 sauces, dozens of cheeses.
You can't just add a little salt or add a little something to the recipe. I mean, we basically had to start over with a new recipe.
And they were working day and night and weekends to get it done.
This is Roxanne. She's one of the lead chefs for pizzas, and she's constantly trying new stuff, and she's saying, try this and try that. The day she put this in front of me, I said, dang, this is the real deal.
We changed everything. The crust, the sauce, the cheese. Now it tastes better.
We started working on the cheese.
We've got shredded cheese. Cheese, it's cheese. It's tastier. When you smell it, it's got an aroma to it. I mean, this is what cheese should be.
We started working on the sauce.
New sauce is bright, it's spicy, it's robust.
We've got garlic in here, we've got oregano, we've got basil, we've got and a little bit of red pepper, just to tingle on your tongue.
It's a bold flavor.
When you bite into that, that's what pizza sauce should taste like.
We started working on the crust.
A nice, rich, buttery crust with some garlic and some herbs in there.
It gives it a nice finish for you. Great taste from the first bite to the last bite on every single slice.
Now we got great food, we've earned the swagger, right? We're gonna do an end zone dance on this one. I can't wait to have people try it. And it's not even about being right, it's about us having great food.
No, it's about us being right. And I can't wait for Adrian to try our new pizza.
So I think she's gonna be surprised.
We're gonna bring her the new pizza, see how she likes it. She has no idea we're coming.
Hey.
Adrienne?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I hope you can see the vast difference between how Wells Fargo tried to rehabilitate their brand, which was basically cosmetic. Nothing inside had changed, And then compare that with Domino's Pizza. They rehabilitated their brand by starting on the inside, right? They changed everything. They changed the crust, they changed the cheese. I do get a little bit concerned when I watch that video when they say it's real cheese. I wonder what was there before. But that's a whole different story for a whole different conversation. But the point is, when you contrast these two case studies, it's clear that Domino's really took their rebranding seriously and it changed things from the inside, right? So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to start giving you very specific steps for you to build a stronger brand and a stronger business. The first thing you guys need to do is to start with the end in mind, right? You need to understand what your purpose is. A good book to read on this topic is by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And the basic principle of the book is that companies that know their why they're doing this, right, perform much better than companies that simply know what they do or how they do it, right? That Blueprint created, our purpose is to inspire growth, and that acts as a compass in terms of what projects we do take and what we don't take. It also acts as a compass for accepting invitations to speak like this, because our purpose is to inspire growth, and it's part of our purpose. Companies, when they start the end in mind, they know exactly what their vision looks like, what they're working towards, in terms of their company culture, in terms of where the business is going to go in 5 years. They know their big, hairy, audacious goal. You know, for instance, one of our big, hairy, audacious goals that we set a few years ago was to do work for a Fortune 500 company, and we just got it done. That was a big, hairy, audacious goal for a small company in Barbados. You know, these companies know what their brand positioning is, they know what their culture is like, they know what their core values, what they are aiming for. Step number 2, build your brand story. So storytelling is huge right now in branding. People want to know the stories behind the brand, the stories behind the projects and the services they're offering, right? But one of the things that companies make a mistake on is that they think that they are the heroes of their brand story. You're not. Your customers are the heroes of your brand story. You're simply the guide that helps your customers to achieve their dreams and their goals, right? So here are some ingredients for a good brand story. Your origin story. We talked about Steve Jobs before. We talked about Warby Parker. Another great origin story is Dyson, James Dyson, the inventor, who developed 5,126 failed prototypes for his new Cyclone technology vacuum cleaner. And they were all turned down by existing vacuum cleaners. And he started his own company, and now he's a billionaire, right? So talking about his failures makes a great origin story, and talking about what he's achieved is part of that brand story. In terms of your ingredients for your brand story, you need to be clear about your purpose, your core values. You need to know exactly how your products and services benefit your customers. You have to know what your benefit statement is. So for instance, when customers ask us what we do, we tell them simply, we help companies build stronger brands and stronger businesses, right? You have to be clear on what your benefit statement is. When Blueprint talks about a brand descriptor, it's simply that we are the world's first brand and communications and design agency, right? So these are very important elements of your brand story that you need to be able to tell. Another part of your brand story is to decide what your personality and brand voice are going to be. So most people are familiar with Richard Branson, the British entrepreneur, billionaire, and they know what his personality is like, right? Some people are also familiar with the entrepreneur called Gary Vee. Now, these two individuals are very well respected on the global stage for their entrepreneurial prowess. Richard Branson, he's an adventurer, but when he speaks about brand and a business, he speaks about it in a very regal way, like a senior statesman. But when Gary Vee talks about branding, he drops multiple F-bombs, right? So my point is that both of these are successful, but they've chosen their brand personality, their brand voice based on their personality. If Richard Branson started to talk like Gary Vee and drop F-bombs all over the place, people would think he's going crazy. Similarly, if Gary Vee adopted Richard Branson's brand voice and brand personality, people would think he's gone soft. So I'm not telling you to drop a couple of F-bombs in your brand story, but I am pointing out that there's no one set tone or personality that is successful. It just depends on what works for you. Now, some of you have also you might know the old joke that all of your customers are listening to your radio station, WIIFM, W-I-I-F-M. And that basically stands for what's in it for me. In your brand story, you have to make it very clear what's in it for your customers, right? What's in it for the people that you are trying to attract. You need to be very, very clear on the benefits and the services that you are pushing to customers. The third step is to build your engaged village, right? Now, as I said before, it takes a village to raise a brand. I've also said that branding is a team sport. So I want to just kind of like, I want you to actually imagine that you have been hired to be the CEO of a coffee shop, right? And by now you know you love coffee. But in this coffee shop, it's going to be spectacular, right? It's going to be a friendly, air-conditioned environment. It's going to be cool. You're going to have great tasting coffee, fresh pastries. You're going to have great customer experience. You're going to have a blazing fast internet where people are going to come and use internet for free, right? It's going to be freaking awesome, right? It's going to be awesome. But instead, what happens is that your air conditioning is not functioning. People are hot and sweaty. You decide to use low-quality coffee beans, right? The pastries are stale. The internet connection is really, really poor, and you give poor customer experience. Guess what? Even if you hire the world's best and most expensive advertising agency to put out great social media content, great radio ads, guess what? You're going to have a very weak brand. But I want you to pay close attention to two things, right? Top left-hand corner, air conditioning malfunction. Now, chances are you would not have installed the air conditioning yourself. You would have hired a vendor. Similarly, bottom right-hand corner, you probably would not have installed the internet connection yourself. You would have hired a vendor. But it matters whether the vendors are responsible for these two malfunctions. People are going to blame you. They're not going to say, well, this particular ISP did a bad job. They're going to say when they went to the cafe, the internet connection was terrible. They're going to say when they went to that cafe, it was hot and sweaty, right? This is why we always say you have to build an engaged village. And that village has to include your employees, your customers, and your vendors. Sometimes your village may need to include students or interns or journalists. You have to build a highly engaged village where people are really excited to help you to succeed. So we also talk about at Blueprint the fact that culture is strategy for breakfast, right? If you have a poor culture, even the best brand strategy or financial strategy or business strategy on paper is going to get decimated, because if you have a poor culture, it doesn't matter how great your strategy is. So one of the things you need to focus on in building your engaged village is that you need to start with your employees and team members and then work your way outwards. There are a lot of companies that have a really big focus and say that your customers come first. That's a backwards way of doing it, right? Your employees, your team members, they need to come first. Because if you put them first, they will then put the customer first. But you have to start with the employees. Richard Branson, I'm paraphrasing now, says, customers do not come first. Employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers. Another book I think you guys really should read if you're interested in improving your skill set is a book called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he isolated that there are actually 3 things that inspire employees. There's the autonomy, the desire to direct their own lives; mastery, the urge to get better and better at something that matters; and purpose, the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. If your employees and team members don't have any elements of these, you're not going to have a strong internal culture. You're not going to have the type of employee engagement that you need to build a strong brand. Because even the most clever brand strategies, like I said earlier, will be gutted if your employees really don't care about your organization's products and services. Now, I'm speeding along, and I'm hoping you guys are taking notes or at least putting more questions in chat. But there's a great realization across the world right now that magic happens when your employees are part of your village. That is obvious, right? Let me give you a couple of quick examples. Most people know Whole Foods as the billion-dollar brand that Amazon purchased a couple of years ago. But what a lot of people don't know is that Amazon started out as a very small business. And in their early years, when they were still very, very small, the area that they were in suffered a massive flood, and it just poured into Whole Foods. Electricity was off, stuff was just spoiling, and they thought they were done for. And the owner of Whole Foods went out to see if he can salvage the business, and his employees came out to help clean things up and see if they can get back on track. What they didn't realize is that a lot of Whole Foods customers came out as well to try to put the business back footing. And when the media asks customers why are they here helping this business, one person actually says, "I don't want to live in a town where there's no Whole Foods." Now, Whole Foods had done a tremendous job of bringing customers into their village. And like I said, like it says on the screen, magic happens where customers are part of their village. Second example, Southwest Airlines. After 9/11, so many airlines just lost their business. They lost collectively billions of dollars, except one, Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines is known for its company culture. It's known for its employee experience. And the CEO of Southwest at the time, he told a story on a podcast I watched. He said that customers sent them money, a $20 bill or $5 bill, because the customers wanted to make sure that Southwest didn't go out of business. Imagine a customer taking their hard-earned money, send it to a billion-dollar company because they wanted to help. That's what happens when your customers are engaged. Third example, one of my co-founders had to travel overseas to get medical treatment for a long-term health issue. And out of courtesy, we told our customers that one of our founders is going to be overseas, and to expect maybe some delays in email correspondence if that person is not next to Wi-Fi. Just letting them know, sensitizing them that if that person is not available, who to contact next, etc. And unknown to us, that customer was a very large organization, went around their department and said, "Hey, one of the principal founders is going overseas for treatment and we need to help." They actually collected a large sum of money to give to the co-founder to make sure she got the medical treatment that she needed. We didn't ask for it, but our customers are an engaged part of our village. Another customer literally took her hard-earned Marriott Rewards points that she had racked up over 5 years and gave them to the co-founder of the company, because she wanted to make sure that she could do everything she can to make sure our co-founder was able to stay as long as she needed to be able to get the treatment that she needed. Now imagine what would happen if your customers, all of you, if your customers became a part of your village and they bent over backwards to make sure your business succeeds. Imagine where your business could be in a year or 6 months or even a week if all of a sudden your customers felt that they're part of your village. The results would be amazing. So the next step in terms of building a stronger brand, defending your brand, and growing during a crisis is design your brand experience, right? And again, you need to start your experience with your employees, then move out with your customers, their suppliers, and other stakeholders. You cannot start your brand experience design with customers. You have to start with employees. Another principle we tell our clients is that you need to encourage the F word in the workplace. Yes, the F word, you read it correctly. And the F word in this case stands for fun, not the other F word that you guys were thinking about. So one of my favorite books on leadership is called The Leadership Challenge. And the authors say, fun isn't a luxury, even at work. People simply feel better about the work they're doing when they enjoy the people they're working with. Every day might not be all laughs, but if it's all drudgery, then it's hardly worth the effort to get out of bed and come to work. And I agree with this wholeheartedly. One of our core values at Blueprint Creatives is to have a smidgen of fun, right? Enjoy yourself. You need to be able to enjoy yourself at your workplace. Another core value is to learn something new every single day. And that is for people that want to increase their skill sets. That core value actually combines very nicely with the fun in the workplace core value, because they're feeling they get their value and they're feeling they're growing in the organization. So when you're designing your brand experiences, you need to think in real life, and you also need to think in digital. When you're designing your brand experience for customers, you also need to think in real life and digital. Now, we're going to go into a couple of more short stories to kind of like illustrate the point, right? So go where the party is in real life and digital. So here's a case study of a brand called Oatly. And if you guys should still be engaged, just put in the chat whether you've heard of the brand Oatly, if you've ever tasted it, just to get some context. And at the same time, you can also put in whether you like oat milk or you prefer things like cashew milk or original milk, just to give some context. So if you're familiar with the brand Oatly, just put it into the chat so I'll know how much I need to explain. But Oatly is a Swedish brand of oat milk, and they had a big challenge. They needed to break into the American market. They did not have a lot of money, and they were looking for the easiest way to get into that market. And one of the things that they did is that they went to where the party was. They went, instead of trying to spend millions of dollars in an advertising campaign, they took their milks directly to baristas at coffee shops. And they told the baristas, here's a free sample, test it out with your customers, see if they like it. Guess what? Customers absolutely loved it. And the coffee shops really started to the orders. And their sales shot up like crazy. Why? Because they went where the party was. They knew their product was good. They knew that the baristas were what we call gatekeepers to reorders, and the strategy worked brilliantly. But there's sometimes you also need to bring the party to you through things like webinars, podcasts, newsletters, training, exclusive content. And this is an example of exactly what the Chamber of Commerce is doing today, right? They're making sure that the party is coming to them because they're providing valuable content, right? When you're talking about designing your brand experience, you also think in terms of a sales funnel. Generally, depending on which research you believe, it can take up to 7 times for a customer to engage with you before he or she makes a purchasing decision. So when you're thinking about your sales funnel, especially for service-oriented businesses, you need to think in terms of top of funnel. That in some cases, that may be things like social media posts. You need to think in terms of middle of the funnel. That may be things like webinars, white papers, etc. And you need to think of bottom of the funnel, things that will actually convert into paying clients. Now, we're coming home to the home stretch because we have a limited time today. But the next step I want you guys to take note of is measure, monitor, and refine. You need to be able to evaluate what is working for your brand and what isn't. And even if you don't have a lot of money for research, you can still conduct low-key, low-cost research. So 2 examples here. One of my favorite shows on television, Shark Tank, is an entertainment show, but it's also educational because people come into Shark Tank to pitch their business to the sharks. Just to make sure you guys are engaged, if you are familiar with the Shark Tank, please just put it straight into the chat. Let me know if you're familiar with Shark Tank, and also let me know who your favorite shark is. But one of my favorite sharks is Barbara Corcoran. And what Barbara did is that she took a small loan and built a multi-billion-dollar brand in real estate. And people couldn't figure out how she was getting all these great deals. I heard Barbara on a podcast, and she said she would go out at night and look on the horizon and look for cranes, big mechanical cranes, because she knew that where there's cranes, there's development. And where there's development, property prices are going to increase. She went in and snapped up those properties very, very quickly before the price rose, then sold them after the land value went up. And that's how she made her money, by counting the cranes. That's an internal focus tactic. But you can also focus on internal tactics by what I call checking the garbage. So one of my favorite business people is a lady called Kat Cole. She started her career at a bar called Hooters. Yes, that Hooters. Some people would say scandalous restaurant, but it's a successful chain in terms of money. And what Kat would do after every shift, she would physically go and check the garbage that people have thrown out. And the reason she would check the garbage is because she knew if there's a lot of one thing that's being thrown away, it's either that the taste wasn't good and people hated it and they threw it away, or that the restaurant was putting portion sizes that were way too much that people couldn't even eat. And in that case, they were throwing money down too. So what she did, she checked the garbage. So if you really want to build a stronger brand, a stronger business, It can't simply be about marketing and advertising. You need to check to see what is it that people are throwing away that they don't like about your products and services. From a quantitative perspective, we can talk about things like cost of acquisition, return on investment, break-even points, gross and net profits, click-through rates. If you don't have a good idea of what's working for you in terms of these quantitative metrics, you're definitely on the wrong track. You need to have these metrics in hand so that you will know what is working for you and what's not working for you. Now, here's my favorite step, is about lava lamping your business, right? So I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with a lava lamp, but it is a throwback to the 70s disco eras, where people just were mesmerized by this lamp. You plug it in, and there are these great colors that go up and down. So the way a lava lamp works is that there are two solutions in a lava lamp. The first is a wax substance, I think it's paraffin-based, and the other solution is water-based. And as we know from secondary school, water and oil don't mix. So when people plug the electricity into the lamp, the wax solution heats up, it goes to the top, it cools down, it comes back. It evolves into this infinite number of shapes, and it's a very smooth transition. So what you can learn from a lava lamp is that in branding, you really do need to be able to adapt very, very quickly, just like a lava lamp. So if you've done any courses in biology, you will know that in nature, it isn't necessarily the biggest or strongest or the most intelligent of the species that will survive. The ones that survive are those that adapt most quickly to changes in the environment. And the same thing happens in business. It isn't necessarily the biggest or the most well-funded companies that are going to survive. The ones that survive are the ones that are going to adapt most quickly to the changes in the environment. So the question I have for you, are you able to adapt? So we're on the home stretch, coming home now. And I want to give you 3 examples of adapting. So if you were born during a certain era, 70s and 80s, you'd be familiar with Kodak. Kodak was a giant in the film industry, but now they're nowhere to be seen because they didn't destroy their business model enough. Digital cameras just decimated Kodak's business. But what a lot of people don't know is that Kodak actually developed the very first digital camera. It was successful, but when the engineer came to Kodak executive and said, there's an opportunity here to develop digital cameras, the executive said, no, we're not going to let this see the light of day, because if we push digital cameras, it is going to disrupt our film and chemical business. They refused to take it up. And now, as you know, they're nowhere to be seen. A second example, very quickly, is Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video was a billion-dollar company that made millions of dollars in late fees alone. And along came Netflix that disrupted the industry, and Netflix actually offered to sell itself to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster said no. So they weren't willing to destroy their business model. You know the story, what happened? Blockbuster is now out of business. It has one solitary location that acts more like a tourist attraction, and Netflix is a billion-dollar company. But I don't want you to think that these are only examples of companies that failed to destroy their business model, and they failed completely. Netflix itself has actually destroyed its business model several times. If you remember, Netflix started as a DVD rental business. But when the internet came forward, and it was clear that people could experience a better experience by streaming, Netflix destroyed its business model, right? And that's how it survived. It moved from DVD by mail to streaming. Another area that I think that you guys can benefit from in terms of a principal brand is change the backfield. So let's look at a couple of very short cases. You probably know Anna was recently crowned one of the world's newest billionaires. And part of the reason for her success is that she took on a giant like Victoria's Secret. So Victoria's Secret for decades had been one of the leading lingerie brands in the world, but they had come under fire because they tended to choose one particular body type for their models. And what it turned out, Victoria's Secret was actually Photoshop. Some of these models that you're seeing on screen don't even look like that in real life, right? Because Photoshop experts tended to reduce the waist, make the bust bigger. But a lot of people have criticized Victoria's Secret for promoting what they say is an unhealthy body image. In comes Rihanna, the first Savage by Fenty, and Rihanna changed the battlefield. Instead of trying to follow Victoria's Secret, she showed so much diversity in the models that she chose to send a signal to the market that we are different. We're very different from Victoria's Secret. Of course, the results speak for itself. Savage by Fenty is just taking up so much of the market share in the lingerie industry. Because why? She changed the battlefield. Here's another case study for you. If you're as old as I am, you may know about a company called Napster. Napster was one of the first companies in the world that allowed people to download MP3s. It was a success until they got their pants sued off of them because it was an illegal service. After a few years, Apple came on the scene with the first platform where people can legally download MP3s and pay for them. Apple changed the battlefield because of its ecosystem. And now, as we know, it's one of the most successful companies in the world. But I also don't want you guys to think that only large companies can change the battlefield. If you look at Blueprint Creative, we created a custom business framework called the Brand Equation. And we've been invited to speak all over the world and to coach business professionals all over the world because we changed the battlefield. Blueprint is the only company in Barbados. It is the only company in the Caribbean, and quite possibly the only company in the world that has a framework that helps companies to integrate their HR and their marketing departments. So you can, even if you are a small company in Barbados, you can change the battlefield. Even if you have a small budget, you can change the battlefield, and you can not just survive, but you can thrive. Coming down to the last stretch, another principle, we're talking about lava lamp in your business. One of the tactics you can use is to repurpose, reinvent, and re-engineer. Here's a classic example. Marvel in the 90s was going through a lot of economic challenges. In fact, they were on the way to bankruptcy, which is why they had to sell off the movie rights to Spider-Man. I think Sony got Spider-Man. They had to sell off the rights to Fantastic Four and the X-Men to Fox. That's the only way they could have survived, right? They were losing tons and tons of money. So what did Marvel do? Marvel repurposed its content, repurposed its characters, repurposed its storyline, and went into the movie business. And I'm quite sure that everyone here has watched at least one movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, to be clear, Marvel didn't scrap all of its old characters, all of its old storylines. They said, we have this great content, but it's not working for comic books. How can we use it? How can we package it? How can we repurpose it? And they went into the movie business, and now they're making billions of dollars. BlackBerry is another case study. Most people know about BlackBerry. It was one of the first major smartphones on the market, but it lost the race to Android and to iPhones. So there was a point where people thought BlackBerry would just completely fail. But what did they do? They repurposed and they repackaged their services. People used to buy BlackBerry phones because of the safety of the phones, the safety of the operating system. So what BlackBerry has done, it decided to leave the smartphone market, and it is now a highly successful cybersecurity firm. Now, they didn't make stuff up to go into cybersecurity. They looked at what they already had, and it was clear that they were outpacing the market in terms of security. And they repurposed, they repackaged, and they reinvented themselves, and now they're a million-dollar company again. Final case study dealing with reinventing yourself, or repackaging yourself, or repurposing. Some of you may know, as I did mention earlier in this workshop, that I published my first book called Tighten Your Shoelaces. And a lot of the principles that we're talking about here today are in the book. We actually repurpose a lot of content that we had sitting around. There's some content that we put on some blog. We said, can this work for the book? we adapted it. We changed the wording, made it more reader friendly for our book format. I also had tons and tons of blog articles that I haven't even published yet. And it made writing a book so much easier because there was this content that was there sitting down that could be repurposed. And that's what we did. And now we're very, very happy to find our product. And Amazon, Typing Shoelaces is doing quite well on Amazon. It's in Kindle and paperback format. And it's also available in Barbados with a limited supply run. So what I'm hoping that this session has done for you guys today is that it has helped you to understand how, even during a crisis like the one we're facing right now, the pandemic, you can still defend and you can still grow your brand. And this is where I'll end off the presentation. And if you need to reach out to me for any reason, I'm on the major social media platforms, although I am more active on Instagram and LinkedIn. I really do hope that today's session was useful for you. And I'm going to open up the floor for questions. One of my favorite quotes on questions comes from Francis Kingdom Ward. Questions are creative acts of intelligence. We're now going to see how many creative acts of intelligence you guys can throw at me in the form of questions. Valerie, over to you.
Well, thank you for that tremendous presentation, Ron, to help us tighten our shoelaces to branding success. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that uncertainty is a fact of life, and business need to be prepped, not just for our current challenges, but those unseen to come. And you certainly deliver some great and practical tips. I particularly love your encouragement of the F word. And people, F word means fun. And we certainly need a lot more of that in these times. Also, your shared power and brand ingredients can help us to not only become more effective in how we brand and market, but also become more resilient to those future giant dancing chickens. So thanks again, Ron. Now, Ron has opened us up to questions, and ladies and gents, we want to encourage you to, to grill him as much as you can with the time that we have. If you haven't already, remember, you can send us your questions using the Q&A chat located in your Zoom control panel. You can also use the Zoom raise hand feature if you want to pose your questions to Ron directly. And if you're following us on Facebook, you can also use the comment section to share your questions. But Ron, to get us started, I actually have a question for you.
Great.
So, as a small business owner, how much do you think personal branding can impact your business branding and your business success?
Oh boy. That's a very interesting and relevant question. I feel like in companies that are very, very small, especially one-person organizations, in some cases your personal brand and your business brand are indecipherable. When you have a scenario where you are the face of the brand and it's not diluted by other people, your brand really is about you. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing in some cases. If you happen to have a certain charisma, a certain level of excitement, you're inspiring people, it can really, really, really be great. It can drive business to your business brand. But I don't also want people to think that your personal brand always needs to be excitable, like getting people off the chairs and screaming. If that's not your personality, don't go that route. And so that actually happened to me a few years ago when I got asked to speak at a workshop. The guy that spoke before me is a well-versed speaker. That was my very first public speech. And he was really enthusiastic, really, really kind of like getting people out their chairs and clapping. And I was like, wow, this is a hard path to follow. And I tried to do the same thing, and it did not work at all. Just did not work, because my personality is more, I would say, like what I did the second year I was asked to speak at the same conference. My aim was not to get people out of their chairs and clapping and screaming. My aim was to get people to look confused, like, wait a minute, I've never thought of it that way. That's interesting. And a success factor for me was that look on their face of enlightenment, that confusion at first, then enlightenment, that, okay, they get it. Another success factor for me is, whether people are going to implement the things that they've seen in my workshops or videos. So I've used that as a benchmark all over the world. That look of enlightenment, especially when people come to me afterwards and say, that's the first time I've heard it being put like that. That is my success metric. So the answer to your question, that personal branding, yes, is extremely important. Extremely, extremely important, and sometimes indecipherable.
So as a follow-on to that, Ron, if you have a small business owner, obviously, very creative, but, maybe doesn't have as much, personality, let's say as Steve Jobs, who you mentioned during your presentation, what can they do in terms of really being able to kind of step up and, find a way to, I guess, cover those weaknesses a little bit, but still lend some level of personal branding to what they're doing in the business?
I want to make sure that I understand the question. Can you repeat it?
Sure. No, what I was saying is, there are some small business owners that maybe have more reserved personalities, because I've heard this said to me many a time where, persons that may be considered, let's say, an entrepreneurial career are kind of held back because they don't think they have the persona to do it. And so the question really is, how do you, for somebody maybe who doesn't have as big a personality, maybe as yourself, how do you kind of overcome that weakness to still be, become a successful business owner in terms of being able to build that personal brand, but, obviously, build the company brand?
It's funny that you said as big a personality as you do. I don't actually consider myself to have a big personality. That's actually pretty funny. But what I would say is that brand is a team sport, right? And sometimes you do need a business partner. So for instance, a lot of people talk about Steve Jobs as the founder of Apple, but they really forget that Steve Wozniak was his business partner. Steve Wozniak was in the background. Steve Wozniak allowed Steve Jobs, who was much more charismatic, to move forward. Let's not forget, we were talking about Warren Buffett. He has a business partner. I think it was Charlie Munger. There's so many businesses, right, that when you dig deeper, you peel back the onion. The person who is the face of the company is there for their skill sets, their gift of gab, their ability to engage people. And then the introverts who prefer not to share the spotlight on the background. This doesn't mean that introverts are less important. They have a role to fill, and sometimes they just don't like being in the limelight. Perfectly fine. So my response to that would be, you have two options, right? You can do what I did instead of trying to be enthusiastic and charismatic and trying to get people to stand on their seats and clap. You can change your success metrics. Like I said, my success metrics are when people have that look in their face like, hey, I never looked at it that way. Or when they say that and say, well, I am having a challenge in a workplace, and the workshop you presented, the content you presented was right on track. Okay? So you can change your success metrics, is one way to go, or you can build a structure where you have some person that loves the limelight where you stay in the background. It doesn't mean that the background means you're less important at all. It just means that you're playing to your strengths.
Thank you for that, Ron. We have a question from our audience, so I'm going to go right ahead and pose that to you. Ron, sorry, making sure I'm seeing that well. Ron, would you speak a bit on how important it is to your brand when you're selecting brand influencers? Sometimes the most popular may not be the right fit for your brand.
Oh, that question is so on point and so relevant to us today. So on point. So whether we like it or not, brand influencers are absolutely key to the success of many businesses. So if you're familiar with the gym brand, Gymshark, it's a British company. And it was started by this guy, I think his name is Ben Francis. He and his friends started to sew brands, outfits together in their garage. And they became one of the fastest growing UK businesses because they went directly to social media influencers and paid them to wear their stuff. Right? Their brand took off. They're literally $1 billion brand. They've grown so fast. So that has worked for them so much. But you also have to be very, very careful and sometimes there's no way to to know this, right? In advance, and sometimes you're taking a risk. So before social media influencers were a thing, people would use individuals. This is before the term influencer came around. Take a look at Subway, the Subway chain in the States. For years, they used the guy Jared, who was overweight, and he used only Subway sandwiches for a couple of months, and he slimmed down. And Jared was the face of Subway in many markets. And what happened? Jared got arrested for I don't remember exactly what it was, right? Child pornography, or it was something that certainly was not good for your brand. And Subway had to scrub the internet of all of their ads that had Jared as a face. And the younger audience might not even know Jared, but that was a huge problem for the brand. Take a look back in the day, Jello had Bill Cosby as their spokesperson. As you know, Bill Cosby is also fallen from grace, and now there's every effort to distance himself. So when you're talking about social media influencers, it's a risk, right? It really is a risk. But you can reduce that risk if instead of just willy-nilly saying, I want you to rep my brand, have a conversation with them, right? Say, what are your values? What do you value? And give an understanding of what you as a company want, right? Because influencers can be great and they cannot be great. And some people, there's actually a backlash now. There's a company, an ice cream company, that influencers would always come up and say, hey, I want a free ice cream cone. I'll put it on my Instagram and it will bring you traffic. And he just got so tired of this because it wasn't bringing him traffic. And he put up a sign in his ice cream cart and said, influencers pay double. Because he was just so tired of influencers demanding free stuff. And as fate would have it, now he's become an influencer because people are reaching out saying, I agree with you, same thing happened with my business. So there's really you as an individual, if you want to reduce the chances of misaligned values, you need to have serious conversations with this person. Get really deep. Have a contract that allows you to get out of that influencer relationship, without causing your brand too much damage. We recently had that in Barbados where there's a specific rhythm that came out, and then the media got hold of it, and then it caused all sorts of problems. I'm not going to comment on that specifically. That's a whole conversation for a different time. But I think it perfectly shows how when we think of influencers, it's not just big billionaires like Kim Kardashian. Barbadian companies use influencers, right? And if you think about it, with that particular situation, it split Barbados straight down the middle. It split it down the middle, where people were saying the brand should have not have done this, and the brand should have, right? I'm not going to cast judgment on it. We live in a world of influencers, and there are pros and cons, right? If you take a look at, I don't follow football as much as I should, but I believe one of the biggest stars in football, the European market, I believe that there was a sports drink. We were holding a press conference, and there was a sports drink on the tables in front of all of the people who are going to be answering questions from the sports team. That individual takes his health very seriously. He removed the sports drink from the table and replaced it with water. I don't think he said anything against the brand. He didn't say, I don't like sport drinks. He just removed the bottle and put it with water. That brand lost millions of dollars in share value simply because one influencer who wasn't even being paid to rep the brand, by his actions, moved that sports drink out and put the water in. The brand lost millions of dollars, right? So even if I'm telling this story to illustrate that even if you don't pay people to rep your brand, influencers can most certainly have an impact on your brand, one way or another. It's impossible to escape in 2021 and beyond. Did I answer your question?
Well, it wasn't my question, but I certainly think from my end that you did. And in fact, I have one follow-on question for you from what you just shared. Because, when you have situations where, like you said, there are influences out there who are beyond your control, and you have a scenario like you just described in terms of, the water replacing the product, and how that affected the brand and their revenues. How is a company, especially a smaller company, how do you get over something like that? How do you manage the influencers that you don't influence?
Right. So one of the things I think would be to be careful about things like product placement, right? So if that brand had done a little bit of research, they may have stumbled across the fact that does not drink sports drinks, right? And knowing that, they could have simply not put that brand in a perfect position for product placement, but it backfired, right? That's one way. Another way is to be just very, very clear about what you stand for and what you do not stand for, right? So let's take a look back at, I think it was about 3 years ago, when Donald Trump was president, and there were a lot of divisive riots. Sometimes there's a great fear of violence. There were, and that, I think that was the rally where he made his famous reference that there were fine people on both sides. The nation was developed, and I don't remember the name of the organization. I don't think it was. I'm not sure the organization, but they had a very strong message that appeared to be pro-white nationalist. I say appeared because a lot of people say it was not. And as a symbol, they took tiki torches and lit them, and they were marching with tiki torches that restaurants or hotels tend to have. It's kind of like on a stick, and it has like flames coming out. And tiki torch got a lot of publicity for it. But it was the wrong type of publicity, and they didn't ask for that endorsement, but they had to come out and say this is not what Tiki Torches stands for, right? I think their message was strong. I don't think that anybody with a reasonable mind would say that Tiki Torch somehow wanted product placement with the alleged white nationalist demonstrators, but they had to come out and say this is not what we stand for. And sometimes that's the only thing you can do, right? But you have to do it with purpose, and you have to do it very quickly. They put out a statement like the very next day, right? They didn't wait a couple of weeks, because the silence might have implied that they're fine with it, right? Because sometimes silence can be interpreted as an acknowledgement that something is correct. No, they came up with it straight away. Tiki Torch our values are not aligned with this particular group. But you have to look at it as crisis management, right? You have to look at it crisis management. There was an interesting story a few years ago that I think it was Afghanistan, that a lot of the terror organizations, for some strange reason, Toyota was their vehicle of choice. You would see Toyotas driving by with these huge artillery guns and everything. And I think Toyota actually had to come out and say, we're not selling to this, how they got their hands on our vehicles, but this is not what we're aligned with, right? So sometimes the most you can do is just try to be very, very proactive, right? The example that I spoke about with the sports star that moved the sports train, what that company did, it did not, I don't think it necessarily tried to sway opinion back and say, we're a sponsor, this person should not have removed our drink. I think they came out with a statement that was kind of conciliatory, saying that, we respect this person's choice of drinks and whatever, and that was that, right? In cases there are some cases where you have to come out very quickly and say we are not associated with, or our brand is not aligned with this type of thinking, and there are some cases where you just have to strike a reconciliatory tone. But every situation is different. But you're getting into an area of branding called crisis management. One of the key things in crisis management is to be agile, right? Be prepared. You can't spend a week crafting the perfect newsletter. You have to just get it out there, and just be clear. If a situation arises where some person talks to your brand in a way that you do not want to talk with your brand.
Oh, thank you for that, Ron. I have One other question for you. You've been running a reasonably successful small business, but you kind of see growth opportunities. You want to diversify your offering. How can small business owners effectively introduce new options without compromising their current brand?
Okay, so generally in business, you have to make a decision on the foundation of your business that was not going to change, and then figure out what you are going to change, right? So when we talk about brand anchors, we talk about our clients about things like the importance of core values, right? The importance of a purpose, the importance of a particular work ethic, right? And that's what Apple did, right? Especially when Steve Jobs came back. When Steve Jobs came back, he reconnected the company with their purpose. What are we here to do? We're not here to make a bunch of boring products. We're here to innovate. We're here to push the limits of technology, right? That was their base. That was their base. But people that know the Apple story know that Apple was Apple Computers. They dropped the computers after a while because they don't want to be seen as a computer company anymore. What happened? They brought out the iPod. They brought out the iPhone. They brought out so many different products, iTunes, right? But none of those innovative products in any way was misaligned with the purpose, right? So take a look at some of the other companies overseas that have done this. Nintendo started as a playing cards, and they eventually ended up as a video game console, right? Play-Doh started out as a wallpaper cleaner. Literally, people used to use Play-Doh to clean their wallpaper until they realized that a few tweaks, better colors, removing some of the ingredients, it became a toy, right? So what I would say is that there are sometimes you have to exit the market, right? And there are sometimes you have to tweak, and only you are going to know. So let me deal with the brand anchors first, and deal with getting out of the pool. So if a company has strong brand anchors, it knows its path, it knows its way. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we were called in to consult with a manufacturing company, not going to call its name, and they brought us in to develop their visual brand because they acknowledged that it wasn't particularly great. We came in, we talked about packaging, we talked about all that stuff, and then I started to ask them about their company culture, their productivity, and I asked questions like, are your team members and employees as engaged and productive when the supervisor's out of the room as when they're in the room? The answer was no. The question was, how do we do this? And at the end of the conversation, the CEO looked at us and said, we're going to put the visual brand on the back burner because what you're talking about, the front burner stuff, is more important. We worked with that company to articulate their core values, their purpose. We came in and we restructured some of the ways that people communicated. We set up a Monday morning meeting where we broke down silos. Every single person in the organization was in this room. The CEO reminded people of the core values, which is a collaborative process, by the way. The CEO started to explain how the business is run, things like accounts, receivables, how much money you have to bring in. It just gave this feeling of togetherness, right? And to illustrate kind of how important that process was, Valerie, you're still there? Your video looks stuck, so I just want to make sure you're still there. Hi, Val, are you still there? Okay, Ron? So I'm going to continue, Val. Yeah, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, you blanked out for a second, right? So basically, we went in and we helped the company with their core values, their brand anchors. And I ran into, a year after we finished our engagement, then I ran into an employee that was there for the process of the brand anchors, the things that the company says will absolutely not change, right? And the guy looked at me, I asked him, well, how are things going with the company? He said they're going great for the company, it's also great for me as well. So I was a little bit confused and said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, I decided to adapt the company's core values and purpose to my own personal life. And I feel like I'm now a better husband and a better father because of it. I was blown away. That's not what you went there for. But I'm just telling this story to show you how powerful things like core values and purpose can be. If you have them and you say, this is what's not going to change. So our core value at Blueprint Creative, learn something new every single day. That's a core value. We're never gonna move away from that. Have fun with a smidgen of craziness. We're never gonna move away from that. I don't want to work in a company that's miserable, right? So the answer to the question about how do you introduce new product, I'm going back to Apple. Once you have those core values, that purpose very, very clear in your mind, right? It's easy for you to say, well, was a good brand extension? Was the iTunes a good brand extension? Of course it was. Same thing for iPad, same thing for the watches. Their core value of innovation and their purpose of innovation remained the same, but how they applied it was very, very different. At the same time, I do think I need to point out that sometimes it is necessary to get out to be pooled, as I would say. I talk with companies like Nintendo, that are trading cards.
Thanks again, Ron. I'm just.
Hi, Valerie, not hearing you. Hello. Hi, Valerie, not hearing you. Hey, Valerie, you there? Are you hearing me? Hi, Valerie, you stuck this
Ron?
time.
Okay, let me just repeat that question. Right. Not sure if you heard the question, so I'm just going to repeat. So I was saying that this is probably going to be our last question because we're running out of time.
Sure.
But I was saying in this current climate, especially for small businesses, what are the key things, in your opinion, that go into a successful marketing campaign?
Okay, so I'm going to do the marketing campaign. I'm going to make this answer very, very brief because we are out of time. But if you remember nothing else, remember that people do business with others they know, like, and trust. So use that as your foundation, right? So if people are going to know, like, and trust you, you have to develop engaging campaigns that go where they are, right? Whether it's social media. So I'm talking about the application. So if you understand know, like, and trust, you can apply that to social media. You can apply that to print. You can apply that to radio. But people need to be engaging. Also would focus on the WIIFM principle. What's in it for me? When you're promoting a marketing campaign, it can't be all about you. It has to be about the individual. How are they going to benefit from this, right? And once you have those principles very, very clear, it's going to be easy for you to do it. But it has to be engaging. Some people use humor, not other people. Other people don't. It has to be engaging. It has to spell out the benefits for the customer, and it has to. It can't be just about brand visibility. A lot of agencies say do this for brand visibility. Brand visibility is only 1/3 of the equation, right? That's the part in terms of like, but you also have to be very careful to become more likable and more trusted. And to close off, in terms of the last question that was asked about, I think it was about pivoting now for brand extensions. I'll close off this story because sometimes you have to know when to get out of the pool. A few years ago, I was on a vacation, a staycation, and my final day there, I jumped in the pool. I was like, this is awesome, this is great. And there was a mother and her daughter in the pool. The daughter had to be about 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little bit younger. And the daughter was screaming at the top of her lungs, Mom, Mom, I need to get to the pool. I need to go to the bathroom. The mother ignored her. Mom, I need to go to the pool. I need to use the bathroom. 3 or 4 times, the mother did nothing. After a while, I realized that the kid stopped crying that he needs to use the bathroom. I realized what happened. I swam to the other side and got to the pool, right? Sometimes you have to know when there's pee in the pool and you need to get out, right? This is probably a really gross example to stop the conversation with, but sometimes you just need to know it's time for me to get out of this pool because this is a pool that is no longer satisfactory to my particular goals. And I'll end there with that very true story.
Well, thank you so much, Ron, for facilitating today's workshop and for sharing your expertise and your stories with us. And I'm sure you have left all of us with a lot of food for thought. And hopefully, people have picked up some, very interesting and very practical tips and insights to help, their branding and their businesses. So we'll now just take another short break for a message from our silver sponsor, Fund Access. They offer an innovative suite of financial solutions for micro and small businesses in Barbados. Thank you.
It is often said that the longest journey begins with the first step. And here at Fund Access, we give you the courage to start your journey, to grow, to live your dream. For more than 20 years, Fund Access has been empowering entrepreneurs through access to finance, business training, and technical assistance. So whatever stage you're at, we can help. Call us at 228-1366 or visit us online at www.fundaccess.org. Fund Access, empowering entrepreneurs.
Ladies and gents, all good things must come to an end, and we're now at the end of today's workshop. I sincerely thank you for your time, and I now invite our BCCI Executive Director, Mrs. Michelle Loban-Clark, to formally thank all the persons who made this event possible.
So I just wanted to start this note of thanks to our workshop facilitator, Mr. Ron Johnson, who as I said earlier, he did an exceptional job breaking down how we can use marketing and service best practices to enhance our businesses. Thank you for a very engaging and insightful session, Ron. Thank you for sharing effective strategies that small businesses can leverage to sharpen their branding axe as they seek to take their businesses to the next level. I personally leave this session stimulated by the winning strategies you have shared in how we can build a better brand and improve service excellence within our businesses. Of course, we extend our gratitude to our corporate sponsors who have committed their support to enhancing small businesses through their financial support of our Survive and Thrive business series. So I say thanks to our gold sponsor, the Nation, to our silver sponsors, Fund Access, and the Business and Employment Center, and Deloitte, Barbados. Thanks also to our bronze sponsor, Guardian General Insurance, RDL, Eagle, Trade Inc. We greatly appreciate your willingness to contribute in a tangible way to the continued success of the BCCI's new Thought Leadership Series. To you, our members, and small business owners and other participants, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you found the session beneficial and that your queries and concerns were addressed, but more importantly, that you leave equipped with the necessary tools to enhance your businesses. To the dedicated team of the BCCI Secretariat who worked tirelessly to pull this event together, your efforts in ensuring a well-organized event, we indeed very, 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 very much appreciate. And I'd specifically like to acknowledge Valerie Hope, our Business Development Officer, who moderated today's session and who is to be conceptualizing the Survive and Thrive series for businesses on behalf of the BCCI. We thank you. I also wish to acknowledge Shanice Haynes, Research and Development Data Officer, for her dedicated support behind the scenes. Thank you, Shanice, for always going above and beyond. In closing, we encourage you to implement at least one innovative strategy, no matter how small. And I just want to emphasize again that there are indeed a wealth of insights that were shared by Ron. So there is at least several strategies that you can implement going forward. So once again, I wish to thank you, and I wish you a safe and productive day, and hope to see you at our next workshop in the series. And our next workshop, which is scheduled for this Thursday, November 25th, will be focusing on financing options for small businesses. That will be another very informative session, so we invite you to join us via our website and Facebook for this session. So please check the BCCI social media pages or website for more information, or contact us at the BCCI Secretariat via telephone or email to find out more about this upcoming session. So once again, thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you a pleasant good afternoon. Thank you.